Hello, everyone. I am Nikki Nicole Humphrey, born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. When people normally ask me who I am, I always say I am a wife, and then I am a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I am an educator, I'm an author, I'm a business owner. Um, I'm a ministry leader. I am First Lady of the Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church. I'm married to Pastor Lance Humphrey. Um, and that would be it. I have so many memories of my childhood. I was born here in Columbus, but the earlier part of my years was on Wilson Avenue, where we lived with my grandmother, my mom, all 7 of my mom's siblings. Everybody lived in the house. All 7 of my grandmother's children, and then once they started having children, then it was the grandchildren that also lived in that house. But my most memorable years would have to be on the north side of Columbus. I always say that I'm a part of Windsor Terrace, although I lived on 15th in Cleveland. And one of the most memorable moments of living in that house on 14th in Cleveland is I was sweeping the kitchen floor, and my mom wasn't at home at the time. I think my brother and sister may have been in another room, and I was sweeping the kitchen floor, and a mouse ran across the floor while I was sweeping, and I had never seen that, and so I broke down and I started crying so hard. First of all, I was scared, but I was like, "Oh my God, we have mice in our home," and I was just blown away, like, that's not supposed to happen. And I remember stopping and crying and holding the broom. And in that moment, I began to speak that I would not live like that as an adult. At that moment, I started speaking, like talking to myself. And at the time, I think it might have been the Holy Spirit, but I just didn't know. But I started telling myself, you're not going to always live like this. You're going to live in a big, beautiful home when you get grown. You're going to be educated. You're going to have a car. You're not going to have to worry about these things. And I will never, ever forget me kind of having that conversation with myself and me kind of having that conversation with God, because I was so sad that we lived in a house and we had a mouse in the house. I know it seems dramatic. I've been known to be very dramatic. But that is probably one of the most memorable moments as a child. I would say that for me, that was the defining moment. I think I was about 14. I think that was the defining moment in my life that motivated me that changed me to be a go-getter. And I think that from that moment on, I started a drive and I haven't stopped. I have not stopped trying to achieve. I have not stopped trying to obtain from that moment, because I don't even think I thought about it, what my life would be. I just always remember that. And that was a defining moment for me. It changed the trajectory of who I was to become this day. What's up, everybody? It's Lady Nikki Humphrey, and you're watching Black, Bold, and Beautiful, My Story. People wonder, or people may wonder, why I praise, why I thank God, why I appreciate God, why I'm so appreciative for the little things. I had a friend one time tell me, he was like, "You thank God for everything. I mean, you just be grateful. If somebody give you a pen, you be so excited and grateful." And it's because I came from nothing. Like, we grew up, like, we had a lot of love in our family. Like, we were loved. My grandmother, my mom, my Aunt Kim, they loved us. But we didn't have a lot. And, now looking back, I'm like, dang, we was poor. we was poor growing up. But we had a lot of love. And so some of the things that I've been through, I was abused 3 times by the time I was 10 years old. And today I can talk about that without crying. That took a lot of mental healing and prayer to get me through that phase of my life. But growing up and being sexually abused, and growing up and sometimes going to bed hungry, and really not knowing what we gonna eat. And my mom, being she was a young mom. She had 4 children by the time she was 21. And so it was my mom and my grandmother, Anna Kimball, and my Aunt Kim, that just, sacrificed and gave their all for who we were. And so I've had so many things happen. I've been in a house fire before. I've been in a shootout before. Most people be like, what? I would say in my latter years, though, the greatest challenge I think that I ever faced was when my husband was in a near-death car accident. To date, that has probably been my greatest challenge. And so not only did we almost lose him, we literally almost lost him. A week later, my grandmother died. And so I was dealing with my husband's accident and the death of my grandmother, my biological grandmother, my dad's mom, who ironically I didn't even know was my grandmother until after my dad passed away. I didn't know I had a biological grandmother. We have to do a whole nother segment for that story. But those were probably some of the most difficult, challenging times, because for the first time in my life, I was in a state of, I don't know how this is going to turn out. I didn't know what it was going to look like for my husband. I didn't know if my husband was going to walk again. I didn't know if my husband was going to die and have a massive stroke on the table, because that's what they told me was going to happen if he had surgery. And so it was just, those were probably some of the darkest days that I faced. And there were things that I still have never divulged to people about, some of the things that I went through. I had a lot of people around me, but I didn't divulge some of the challenges. What's up, everybody? It's Lady Nikki Humphrey, and you're watching Black, Bold, and Beautiful, My Story. People see and they think they know, but those were some really, really dark days. Just because my husband is he's such a man, he's such a caretaker, he's such a provider. And the day that he got into the accident, the second that I found the car wreckage, I became a caretaker. And so, Nikki, the wife, was gone. And, it's like 50-50 now, because the wife is still there, but I'm still a caretaker. Sometimes I feel like I'm always in the state, and not that he needs this, but I'm always thinking for me and my husband now. I'm always looking out to make sure, things are good. And even when he's up preaching, I'm always zeroing in on making sure that he's getting words out, because he had 3 strokes. So those were probably some of the most challenging days of my life. And then for me to lose my grandmother, and um, be the only person that I've never planned a funeral before. Like I went down to Texas by myself, and I planned an entire funeral by myself because my husband, he couldn't be with me because he was still in the hospital while all this was going on. And so my daughter and my sister, they did come and were with me down there, but that was rough. I will never forget me calling to see where my grandmother was. And a charge nurse got on the phone and they wouldn't let me talk to. I'm like, where's my grandmother? They took her to the emergency room. I'm trying to find out where she is. And the charge nurse was like, I'm so sorry, sweetie, your grandmother is gone. And I was just, I didn't know what to say. I was speechless because my husband is laying in a hospital bed and he can't even hug me. He cannot even hug me. And so I remember going into the bathroom in the hospital and I just sit on the bathroom floor and I just cried for like an hour. And that was the first time that I was like, God, you left me. Because I'm like, this cannot be happening. Like, you gonna take my grandmother, who I just started to build a good relationship with. We had had a great relationship for 3 years. And I was just like, my grandmother is dead and I'm here. And so, for me to have to go back in that hospital bed and tell my husband that my grandma died and there's nothing he can do, he cannot even hug me. It was just like, it was too much. I was just like, I didn't know how I was going to get through that. But, I got through it. I always get through it with the help of God. And I wrote a book about my experience. I didn't write a book for it to be a book. I just start writing down everything that I was feeling. And it happened to turn into a book. And so me being able to write was a form of healing because I put everything that I had in my brain, everything that I felt, my thoughts, my emotions, what I thought about people at that time, I put it all in my book. And, I was healed. I was healed by that. It's still sensitive to talk about. I try not to talk about the accident. I try not to relive the accident. We have a reminder every day physically as to what happened with the accident. So that was probably my most challenging time. I went through, Alexa, my daughter, she really went through, she still deals with my husband's accident today. But I understand that I was not the only one that was affected by this. There's a whole church family that loves my husband, loves us. There were friends, that went through this with us. There's family and his mom and his sister. I'm not numb to the fact that I was the only one that went through with this. There were people that walked through this with us from day one. And so, I'm sensitive to that. I'm very sensitive to those that went through with us, including church family, friends, the worship team at Mount Zion. Shout out to Mount Zion worship team, who is truly my second family, believe it or not. I was sexually molested 3 times by the age of 10 by three different men, and so it wasn't just one person. And I was sitting down with my grandmother because I have always, when we left, so my mom was a young mom, and so we would live with my grandma, then my mom would get her own place because she was being grown, and we would move out, and we would move back. And so my grandmother and we had a bond like no other. Who you see today singing and the passion, the love for God, the love for music, I owe it all to Anna Catherine Kimball. I feel like I'm a reincarnation of my grandmother when it comes to gospel music. And so every time my mom would move out, I never wanted to go because I wanted to stay with my grandma. I always wanted to stay with my grandmother. And so the day I graduated high school, we hung out with some friends, and they was like, where you want us to take you? And I was like, take me, because I was 18. I was like, I was 17, but it was my last day of high school. I said, take me to my grandma's house. And so I went to my grandma's house and I moved in. I ain't asked nobody. I stayed there until I went to college. And so before I went to college, we used to watch Maury Povich every day. You remember Maury Povich? We would watch Maury Povich. No, it was Montel. It was Montel. Y'all remember Montel? So we watched Montel. And so we had our routine. My grandma would get up and have her coffee and her orange juice. I drink that to this day. And we would get up and she would make breakfast for us. We would watch Montel. We watch all the soap operas. So Montel was on, and we were watching this episode, and it was an episode about being violated as a child. And he kept saying, if you or anyone that you know has ever been a victim of sexual abuse, you need to tell somebody today. And the second time he said it, I was like, oh my God, I was sexually abused. It was like I had wiped it out. And when I tell you, I started bawling, crying, like, I gotta tell my grandma this. I gotta tell my grandma this happened to me. I'm like, I don't know, it's like it had just happened. From a TV show. And I started crying so hard. And she was like, what is wrong? What is wrong? And I was like, I gotta tell you something. And she was the first person that I divulged what happened to me when I was a child. And from then on, I felt like I went on a campaign. So I'm like, well, if I told my grandma, I got to sit down and tell my mom. And I knew that would be hard because of who my mom is. I did not want to tell my mom that because I knew my mom would blame herself because she was a young mom. And I knew that she would feel like it was her fault for not watching or not. But, I'm like, it is what it is. But I sit down and I told my mom, and then I told my Aunt Kim, and, I felt like at that time, I kind of aired it out to those people, and I didn't talk about it anymore. And I couldn't watch a story about somebody being abused. I couldn't be in a room where somebody was talking about that because I would just be like, and then I ended up getting married. And so my marriage suffered a great deal because of what happened to me. And finally, I think, gosh, I don't even know how many years went by. It was years before I got the courage to share with my husband what had happened to me. And after I did that, that's when freedom came for me. Because then I was just telling everybody, like it was a testimony. Like I was like, this is what happened to me. I was abused by the time I was 3 years old. And by the time I was 10 years old, I wasn't crying. And it became a testimony. And then that's when God was like, your testimony, those things, not that God causes things to happen to you, but because they did happen to me, I knew to use it as a testimony to help somebody else. And so that's why my preaching ministry I forgot to say I was a preacher. My preaching ministry is always to the women that have been shattered, broken, and abused. Because I know what that is. I know what that feels like. And who else can minister to them but me? Because I can identify those feelings, those emotions, and I can see it on people. I've called it out on people, and I've literally been able to walk people into their deliverance as a result of what happened to me.
Kingdom Image Arts is more than just an organization. It's a beacon of hope and possibility for our community. Through our initiatives, we strive to build confidence, develop skills, and cultivate a deep appreciation for the arts and the world around us. We believe that by investing in the arts, we can create a more vibrant, resilient, and compassionate community. One where every individual feels valued, supported, and empowered to pursue their
What's up, everybody? It's Lady Nikki Humphrey, and you're watching Black, Bold, and Beautiful, My Story. The Heal and Help Conference, it's my conference, and I shared this last year. The Heal and Help shout out to the Heal and Help Conference is coming August 14th through the 17th. Don't miss it. You can register. The Heal and Help Conference was not something that I birthed. The Heal and Help Conference is something that my baby girl, Alexa, birthed. And it was a vision that God gave her, and I took the vision, me and Shanice Spencer, and we ran with it. And so I'm looking forward to Alexa being a huge part of the conference this year, because God has worked. I would tell myself, girl. So Superwoman is my alter ego, hence the Superwoman Converse that I have on. I wear them when I preach sometimes. Anytime I want to feel empowered, I put these shoes on. I would tell myself, you are so strong, you are brave, you are courageous, and what success is going to look like for you is being able to touch the lives of people. So God has blessed me with some wonderful, nice things. They mean nothing to me. What means the most to me and how I define success in my life is by the way I leave people feeling when I have left their presence. And I want people to feel good. I want them to feel loved. I want them to feel valued. I want them to feel like they are important and they are somebody. And so what I would say to myself is, girl, you bad. You bad, girl. So I think both of them are huge. So it was prophesied to me by two different people. So shout out to Edward Avery, who is going to be on this show, my brother. 2013, I had a vision to do a CD called Lifesaver. And I recorded Lifesaver in April of 2013. Huge success. And Ed and I used to work together, and he came into the office and he was playing one of my songs, and he was like, sis, we need to do this again. And I was like, do what again? And he was like, we need to do Lifesaver again. And I'm like, for what? He's like, because we need to do it again and do it live and record a couple of songs. I was like, get out of here. Somebody came to me and prophesied to me about Lifesaver probably a month later and said, you have to do Lifesaver again. And I was like, have y'all talked to each other? And so I'm going to be partnering with Kia and Romani Hunter. And in the spring, we're going to redo Lifesaver. So y'all heard it here, hot off the press. I'm going to redo Lifesaver. And so you are the first person that I've shared that with. Here, I'm redoing Lifesaver at the unction of Ed Avery and a good friend of mine. And then I am working on something big. I'm working on my own school. And so I'm not going to go into a lot of the details. Just know that it's coming. But I'm going to have my own school. It's going to be owned and operated by myself. I have a co-founder, and I'm very, very excited. It's going to be unlike anything that you have seen here in Columbus, Ohio. And the reason why it's going to be like that, because the school is God-inspired. Even the name, it's God-inspired. It's God-ordained. And I'm very, very, very excited. And I've actually been working since January 6th on my school, so I'm excited. So those are two big things that I'm sharing with you guys. So you can find me on Facebook at Lady Nikki Humphrey. You can find me on Instagram. I think it's Lady Nikki Humphrey first. Oh yeah. So you can find me on old school Facebook and Instagram.
Lady Nikki, I'm so happy that you are here with me today at the studio of Black, Bold, and Beautiful. You have told your story.
I have.
You have. How you feel?
You know what? I feel appreciative.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel appreciative. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell my story, because a lot of people think they know my story just because I'm very transparent, I'm very open. But thank you for allowing me to tell my story in this capacity, in this way.
Yeah.
So I feel appreciative.
Oh, I'm so happy that you're here. It's so funny that you said that because someone on another episode said that if we don't tell our own story, people can create their own narratives.
Come on now.
And so I firmly believe that your story is going to touch so many people, so many women, and you being who you are. And I remember when I first moved here, I'm now going on my 9th year of living here. But I remember when I first moved here and I was not a member of the church, and I was sitting in the back and you and your mother preached.
Oh, wow.
And you preached a message, and it was called "You Still Have Something Left."
You still have something left. That was a defining moment for me and my mom to be able to preach together in ministry.
And it was. I was so full. I was just like, oh, I gotta come here. This is my family.
Because you get full in a minute. Huh?
Yeah.
That's not the first time you was full.
What'd you say? Somebody, I said, I feel Jesus. You said, Joe, you always feel Jesus.
Always. I love it, though. I love it.
Yes. You know, when you my buddy.
Right. I love it.
So I'm so happy that you came. And
thank you. Thank
I
you so much. I love you, too. Thank you so much. Thank you.
What's up, everyone? My name is Sawan, and you are watching Black, Bold, and Beautiful, My Story. Make sure you follow us on YouTube at BOKBB Productions.